Hey folks, Northwester here for Northwester's Realm with news in the flash. We just got a few items today we're going to go over, make it a little short. In the news today, U.S. aid or USAID has been found out by Musk was funding the political organization, news organization, and they've cut off funding for them, and then now they're not making payroll. So they were a government front all along. And they're the ones that came out with the nefarious stories, the untrue stories and hoaxes during the last Trump administration. So it's kind of interesting that that's one of the things that it was funding. And another news item, Trump says that what we can do is take Gaza, the Gaza Strip, remove the Palestinians, and it'll become the Riviera of the Middle East. Now, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm still thinking about it. I know I support Greenland and Panama and even taking parts of Canada if they wanted to come to expand the country, but that's kind of a I'm not sure what to think about the Gaza thing. But I think we could turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. That's good that Israelis have done much with the land there. It's their ancient homeland. So it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. I'll support President Trump on it, but again, I don't know what I think overall. And in other news, the FCC is investigating Soros-backed radio stations, Soros, for broadcasting locations undercover ICE agents on purpose. They're violating the law. So they're going after people that are violating the law, finally. Um, and George Soros said that he wanted to bring the United States down. He's a traitor. He's anti-American. And one of the things I would have done immediately, if I had become president, and I did, is I would have just cut off all of his sources of funding. I would have put a freeze on his ability to use his money. Because once you do that, once you take away the money, then you begin to see results. And then you could just, do it now and they can ask questions later, sort of thing. But he's definitely, he and his family is definitely a problem and they need to be dealt with. And I'm glad that they're doing that. The last thing I'm just going to go over today, again, I'm going to make it kind of short, is that President Trump has been signing amazing executive orders. Some of them have been held up in court. And I'm going to say this about the whole judge thing, and nobody else is saying this, but I'm going to say it. The judiciary is not a higher part of government from the executive branch. They're supposed to be an equal part of it. Now, there are checks and balances, but most of those checks and balances are given to the legislative branch to keep the president in check. There's an impeachment process if he gets too out of hand, but to keep him in check. There's also the financial part where Congress has to allocate at least approve money for the president to spend. That's based on history, but the the judiciary, if there was any branch that was supposed to be a little bit weaker, it was the judiciary. This is what Thomas Jefferson said. And they've been given way too much power to themselves. And you have these DC courts that are basically anti-Trump, who are well, all they're going to do is they're going to search for courts that are anti-Trump, people appointed by Obama or Clinton or these idiots, judges, and to stop everything he does. That's called lawfare, and it shouldn't be allowed. And President Andrew Jackson said, and in regards to even the Supreme Court making a decision says that about his enforcement of the law that was passed by Congress and which he signed, or another president signed, and he was enforcing. It was the Indian Removal Act. It wasn't a great law, but he basically says, "Well, you made your decision now. Now you go ahead and enforce it." You see, the court doesn't have any more power than the president. They don't have any power to enforce the law. They can make their decisions on the law, but what gives one judge, especially in some of these cases, the power to think that they know more than the president does? That's ridiculous. The courts are supposed to be presiding over justice. They're supposed to make sure that people's rights, when there's a case, are preserved. That's very important. And jurisprudence is done, but uh, but they're not supposed to be interpreting the law, and they're not. That's for the executive branch, and we've let them for too long a period of time take that power into themselves. And Marbury versus Madison. Well, Marbury versus Madison, everybody points to that. If you guys remember, if anybody can remember that from their classes, was a decision that said that the federal government supersedes the states. It has nothing to do with actual power of judicial review, like they say it is. But they've just given themselves that power. I do recognize the Supreme Court's right to kind of interpret the law as well. I think there needs to be balance there. I think if the Supreme Court decides that the law is unconstitutional, it should be presented to the Senate. If the Senate agrees with them, then of course that's the government's word, and the president should go along. But if the Senate disagrees, then the president should make the final decision. It should be two branches of government agreeing, not just one branch of government. The court is not supposed to be doing that. That creates an oligarchy of the courts. And that's all they're doing is these people who don't like this country are using the courts to harm the execution of the laws of a person that was elected by the people that actually has more legitimacy than the courts, who were appointed by presidents. The president was elected by the people, a majority of the people voted for him in this election, and the majority of the electoral college. So they have no right, especially a lower court judge. Now, you see, all these lower courts, you see, if you look at the Constitution, the Constitution states that there's a Supreme Court, of course. It doesn't say how many members are on it. That's up to Congress. And it says any other lower courts Congress creates. So these lower courts were created by Congress. And one of the things that happened during the Thomas Jefferson administration is that John Adams appointed all these court judges, and he didn't like them because they were Federalists. So he just created a Judiciary Act to remove their positions. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to clean out the courts as much as we need to clean out anything else. And the way to do that is create a Judiciary Act that completely ends every court below the Supreme Court. Can't end the Supreme Court. Um, and then recreates the court system, a brand new one that the president can then begin to appoint. Get rid of them. Who says that they're in there for life? They haven't shown good behavior. That's my opinion, anyway. But anyway, so the president is trying to. I went off on a tangent there, but I'm tired of this court crap. The president should just tell him to go to hell. You know, go to hell. Go fuck yourself. I don't give a shit what you say. You know, if the Congress doesn't like what I'm doing, because you can't remove me, you can't do anything. And if these people are not enforcing my executive order, we will go after them and we'll arrest them, and we'll find a friendly court on our side to enforce it, to help enforce it. He should be tough with them. We don't need to play softball on this. Anyways, I went off on a tangent on that. He signed among the signing executive orders that he signed was he signed one banning trans from women's sports, and that's a very good one. I'm glad he's doing that. One of the executive orders that was held up by one of the judges in Washington D.C. Was related to trans as well, transferring from a woman's prison to back to a male prison. So there you have it, folks. That's kind of the news for the day. Uh, We want you to have a good remainder of your day. If there's anything further developments, I will make another video and maybe come out with something special. No paranormal news for today, for right now. And we want you to have a good day and have a good night, folks.